So, hey, it's Nancy, the nurse practitioner. I'm here. We're going to talk about metabolic syndrome. Oh boy, is that an epidemic in the world all around us? And we're going to go over what it is, what causes it, what are some disorders that you may have, and what does it lead to? But most importantly, is how can you prevent it and reverse it and make your life healthier and better? So, first thing I want to tell you is metabolic syndrome is an accumulation of a few disorders: dyslipidemia, which is high cholesterol; insulin resistance, where the insulin that comes out of the pancreas is not being sensitive, and that the glucose and the insulin are not finding each other, leading to higher blood sugars; obesity, which means your BMI is over 30, and we'll go over that in a little bit; and high blood pressure. So these are disorders that in combination are actually called the Syndrome X. The way it's called is deadly quartet, which is very scary wording, but that's what it is if you have all four syndromes or disorders, and Reven syndrome, which is another name for it. So metabolic syndrome can cause type 2 diabetes, could lead to stroke, a prothrombotic state, which is the stroking where people get emboli, and a pro-inflammatory state. You know, inflammation is a big word these days if you read anywhere about arthritis and diseases and cancers, and that inflammation is a real problem. So we'll go over a little bit about that. Central obesity. Central obesity is specifically linked to big bellies. And we're not talking about your belt size that you bought in the store and it's 34 inches and then your belly sits over it. When is the last time you got your waist measured? Take a measuring tape from your sewing box and measure it around your waist. And for women, your waist should be under 35 inches. And for men, it should be under 40 inches. And that's where you start. And it should be across the belly button and the back. That means you go right over those love handles, kind of. Well, no, actually, my love handles are kind of in there. And you have to go right across the belly button. Do not do it where your belt is and measure your belt. So that's the first mistake. And every time my patients came in for a physical, I whipped out the measuring tape and they were like, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to see how your belly's doing and want to measure it." And you know, another thing that's very, very important to know is that Alzheimer's disease has been called type 3 diabetes, a new kind of name they're giving it. And central obesity is linked to Alzheimer's disease. So if you look around you and you see all the big bellies out there and all the people with dementia, got to start thinking about getting skinnier. Okay. So let's go over some things. I'm going to share my screen with you. But even before we do that, I want to go over a few statistics that 1 in 3 adults in America have metabolic syndrome, 1 in 3, and that's any age. And that more than half of us over 60 have it. That is pretty scary. WHO, which is the World Health Organization, it suggests that 65% of the world living in countries where being overweight kills more people than underweight populations. So that's all because of portioning, poor choices, lots of processed foods, trans fat foods. And actually, I'm going to do another lecture for you on fatty liver because that's another big problem out there. And many people with high cholesterol also have fatty liver. So it's not just one problem that leads to another problem, but many problems lead to a gazillion problems in one person. And if you could get rid of one major problem, you could get rid of many other disorders. This is very cool to know that this is not a life sentence of disease. So when we talk about metabolic syndrome, it is not the same as insulin resistance. What we're trying to say is that pre-diabetes is the same as insulin resistance. And insulin resistance actually means that a high sugar diet, we know who we are, will lead to insulin in the pancreas to be less able to bind to sugar, which is glucose, and it causes resistance. They just don't want to find each other and they're not attracted to each other. And so the sugar levels go up in the blood. The World Health Organization, the American College of Endocrinology panel, all have different definitions of what metabolic syndrome is, but it all leads to the same problem: type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and linked to Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so we're going to go into my actual screen here and share it. So hang in there with me here. Metabolic syndrome is a global epidemic, and we just talked about what is the definition. These were, again, the three things I mentioned. Syndrome X, which I love that term, I don't know, which is something that I learned in school, like I said, and it really stuck to me and used it for many, many years. We are just going to go over prediabetes here, and this is from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. Statistics again, one of 86 million American adults, okay? 9 out of 10 people with prediabetes do not even know they have it. And prediabetes is when your blood sugar is higher than normal, but not high enough to get to type 2 diabetes. So that's a whole other lecture of itself. But what we're saying here is if your blood sugar is more than 100 fasting and under 126, this is considered prediabetes. And over 126 on 2 consecutive fasting blood sugars, you have diabetes. Done. You have it. So if you have prediabetes and you've been told that your blood sugar is between 100 and 126 fasting, this is your cue. This is the time to lose weight, eat better, walk, get exercise, and this is the time to get your waist measurement down below 40 if you're a man and under 35 for a woman. And the reason for that is because it will reduce the visceral fat. You know, viscera is the organs in our belly. And when there's fat all around them, the adipose tissue, it secretes something called leptin and other inflammatory chemicals that impair the beta cells that are actually in the pancreas. And that's where the insulin is produced. So if you can lose like 1 or 2 pounds a week and just get that belly fat down, you can make your body so much more efficient in absorbing sugar and reducing disease. So we talked about what metabolic syndrome is a little, but here's some more definitions that are tangible to you and are measurable. We talked about the waist circumference, and that's across the belly button and around the back. Okay, the second thing is triglycerides are more than 150 and reduced high density lipoprotein. Now these are the good guys. These are the HDLs we know of that are supposed to carry the bad LDL or bad cholesterol out of our blood. And under 40 in men is considered to be an issue and a problem, and under 50 for women. So those are 2 very important numbers that need to be over 40 for men and over 50 for women. And the best way to do this is get going. Elevated blood sugars, we talked about sugars over 100 milligrams per deciliter or greater is putting you in the syndrome as long as it's below 126. And then the last thing is your blood pressure. You know, when you have your blood pressure checked, make sure it's both arms, sitting down with your feet on the floor. Try not to go to the office after 2 or 3 cups of coffee because you know it's going to be elevated, or after having a fight with somebody, or after being upset. Calm yourself down and let the blood pressure be taken in both arms. It should be, those numbers cannot be over 130 or over 85 diastolic in order to be considered not an issue for metabolic syndrome. But if you're over that in either arm or both arms, you definitely have metabolic syndrome factors there as well. And here's what the JNC-7 classification of blood pressure was for adults. It shows that a normal blood pressure should be under 120 or 80. And you know, for those of you who have hypertension, we'll be doing a lecture on that as well. It's kind of important to make sure that you get yourself an Omron or some other blood pressure cuff that is you know, a good blood pressure cuff you can use in both arms. Keep record of it. There are certain foods that will elevate your blood pressure, and we can, again, go over that another time. And hypertension is 120 to 139 and 80 to 89 millimeters of mercury. Stage 1 hypertension is 140 to 159 over 90 to 99. Stage 2 is greater than 160 and diastolic over 100. Okay, so these are some numbers that will help you know, but this is where you want to be. You want to try to get in the normal range, and there are foods you can eat, and there's foods you can avoid, and there's exercise you could do, and there's weight that you can lose to get rid of hypertension and control it much better. This is a very wordy slide. let's just go over this. We went over abdominal obesity. You want to get your waist below 35 for women, under 40 for a male. If you can consistently lose weight and reduce your caloric intake, and we're going to go over the Healthy Plate or MyPlate site in a few minutes. But also we talked about the waist circumference. We talked about activity has to be improved, at least 30 minutes of continuous activity, maybe 3 to 5 days a week. And that could be gardening, that could be walking, that could be vacuuming and cleaning your house, that can be weeding, that could be riding your bicycle. There's so many ways of activity. It doesn't have to be walking, because for some people that's just plain old boring. And then, of course, reducing saturated fats and things of that nature, and trans fats. Actually, anything that you find in a box, grocery store, is actually considered bad food. It's full of a lot of trans fats. It's full of chemicals. Try to stay away from the box, okay? Stick to the outside parameter of the store, where the fruits and vegetables, eggs, dairy, breads and grains, things like that, that's where you want to be. And once you go into the middle, where the chips are and the sodas and the box, all sorts of rices and stuff like that, you're going to find canned soups, that's where the salt and the sugar is coming from, and all the extra ingredients. And actually, if you cook for yourself, fresh is always best. One more thing I need to tell you is that lots of foods do have sugar in them. So even nice fresh foods like strawberries and blueberries, everything is in moderation, but eat the good stuff. So in general, the best thing you can do is reduce your syndrome by doing the activity to reduce your blood pressure, your calories. And I do want to show you this MyPlate in a few minutes, but it's also following a Mediterranean diet, and we'll go over that. Stop smoking, reduce your alcohol intake. And I will tell you that sleep is one of the most important things you can do to improve your overall health. And people actually can gain weight while they're sleeping, believe it or not. People who are stressed out and their cortisol levels are high are landing up also gaining weight, maybe even not from eating anything, or they've cut back a lot. So very, very important about sleep. And when we talk about blood pressure, and we were talking about that in a few minutes ago, in general, it's been laxed a little bit and cut back, where we don't have to treat every single person right away. There should be lifestyle changes in your, for a while, to see if you can reduce your blood pressure. These are the requirements. If they're 150 over 90 over 60, or 140 over 90 for those under 60, that's when they should be pretty much treated for high blood pressure. So let's stop and talk about 2,000 calories a day. And here I'm showing you, when you break down your food combinations, carbohydrates should be 45 to 65% of your day. Sugars should be very low. I stopped putting sugar or any kind of sweeteners in my coffee a long time ago. Fats, skin on the chicken, sausage, bacon, red meat. You know where the fats are. I mean, there's good and bad fats, but it's using fats in moderation. Protein is also to be reduced, and you can see it's on the lower side of the food chain of what you eat during the day. And fiber for men can be that are under 50 years of age is 30 grams, and for women, it should be 21 grams of fiber a day. Okay, and one more thing I'd like to show you, and let's just stop the share for a minute, is that this is a plate I made, Make a Healthy Plate. Okay, I know it's a little sketchy here, but Make a Healthy Plate. Fruits, vegetables, proteins, and grains. And then dairy is really tiny over here on your plate. So if you look at your plate, if you can envision it mostly being vegetables, a little bit of protein, less of fruits, and more of grains, you can really establish, when you go out to the restaurant, when you're going to eat dinner at night, how to make a meal that's going to be better for you and not overloaded with one or the other parts of the meal. And dairy is considered, like as you see here, less of all of them. Yogurts, cheeses, although I love my cheese, but hey, you're not supposed to have a lot of that. So carbohydrates is the number one culprit. They increase your blood pressure and they can increase sugar release and they are we are consuming more foods and more quantity and more density than ever before. You know, when I go out to dinner with my husband, we share an appetizer and we share a dinner. We never get dessert. We drink a lot of water. Can't say we don't have a glass of wine, you know, but I will say that we don't buy the fried foods. We don't get any fried calamari and things like that. And we do share meals and we're never full and we go home feeling very comfortable and it's great. So let's take a minute and go over what BMI is. It's the body mass index. You know, it's defined about being overweight as a BMI over 25 and less than 30, and obesity is defined as over 30 BMI. Now, staying in the 26 to 35 is fairly good BMI, body mass index. One thing that's kind of screwy with BMI or body mass index is that if you have a lot of muscle, you're going to weigh more. So does that mean you're fatter? No. So if you want to help to reduce your BMI, though, because you know if your belly is over 35 inches, you gals out there, then you should be reducing your calories by 300 a day. And it will help you to reduce your BMI. And take your time, lose your weight slowly. The slower, the better. This way it will stay off and it will stick. And this food plate I showed you it replaced actually the food pyramid, which has been around for a gazillion years. So it's nice that you can actually envision the plate when you're out to dinner, and you can make sure, like I make so many vegetables for a meal, big saute, you know, with oil and leeks, and I put anything I could find in the refrigerator. I love going to like the markets where you can just buy a ton of vegetables. You know, it costs a little bit more to eat well, and even some organic. I like to go organic, and we'll go over more of that when I talk about fatty liver. The other thing I just want to go over is diet. You know, people hate that word, hate it, hate it. Diet is a four-letter word. That's a bad word. It's a fad word. It's really a lifestyle change, and you've heard that before. You know, one day a lady came in to see me. She was getting her physical, and we got done with the physical, and she was about 150 pounds overweight. And I remember taking her face in my hands and saying, "You are such a pretty girl. You would be beautiful, stunning, if we could help you lose the weight." And, you know, she left my office and I didn't see her for a year. And she came to the office a year later and she says, "I need to see Nancy." So she comes up to the desk. She's wearing this really pretty coat. She opens up this coat. She has a beautiful red dress on. She probably weighed, you know, she was like a size 6 or size 4 dress. I almost fell over. And I pulled her into one of the rooms and I said, "Mary, oh my gosh, look at you. How did you lose this weight? And what was your motivator?" And she said, "It was something you said to me. You didn't threaten me with, I'm going to get this and that if I don't lose weight. You didn't threaten me about my medical conditions and my numbers. All you said is something I needed to hear, that you are so pretty. And if you could lose this weight," and everybody knows how to do this. You know, we really do know. There's lots of ways to find out. Dr. Google is pretty big out there, that she figured it out herself, and that was a motivating force. And she was absolutely gorgeous. So I was so excited that that happened for her. Now, so think about that in your world, in your life. How would you like to look? How would you like to feel? Uh, you will feel great. You will look great. You will have less medical problems. It costs a little more. It takes a little more work, but it is a lifestyle change. And when you have more energy and everything falls into place, it is worth every bit of it. Because this is the only body we get. We don't get another one. This is it. So what are you going to do with it? You know? So I have some things that I'm going to leave for you. The most important things is how to do some step-by-step tips that I got from on type 2 diabetes, how to prevent it. So I'm going to put this on my Caregiver Success Facebook page for you. It's in English, and I also have a nice version in Spanish, so I'll definitely put that up there. I also have a slide about how you can prevent diabetes, and it was something I kind of showed you in the slides, but this is really important that you can see that and print it and know what to do. You know, try to use natural sweeteners when you cook. I love making, like, if you got to have a sweet tooth that wants to be, you know, helped out, you can eat plant-based desserts. I make all sorts of dark chocolate with peanuts and things in it. I use dates and I use apricots and I use maple syrup, and I don't use cane sugar. I use coconut sugar and other types of ways of getting better food choices if I'm going to make cookies. Okay, so check that out. It's really fun. Just look up plant-based desserts. And I also have a video on that on my channel, Caregiver Success. The other important thing to know, we talked about the blood pressure numbers, is your cholesterol numbers. They're really, really pushing now for us to get our LDL, or low density lipoprotein, down below 70, which is really low, but hey, you know, whatever works. We've got to get that blood pressure down, and we have to help ourselves with this insulin resistance, okay? People have been put on metformin, but it also has its side effects for you out there that have been on it, of diarrhea and heartburn. And if you really feel you need help, you can always see a diabetic educator or go see a nutritionist to really go through. You know, grocery stores now actually have nutritionists there, dietitians that will walk you through the store and go over boxes and reading labels with you, okay, which is really, really important. We did talk about sleep, basically about the epidemic about sleep apnea and also people snoring. If you're a snorer and you have a big belly, if you get rid of that belly, you will stop snoring, most people, and that will reduce your sleep apnea, and you will lose weight just because you've lost that belly, and also you're starting to sleep better. You see how it all kind of rolls into each other? And you can learn more about any of this on the CDC pre-diabetes risk quiz, which I can also put up on my Facebook page /caregiver success. It's cdc.gov/diabetes/prevention. And you could take your own quiz to see if you're at risk for getting diabetes, which is really, really important. You can also look at the DASH diet, which is a Mediterranean style diet, and it helps to lower your high blood pressure as well. So you can have a lot of fun with all of these things, make your life better, and the tools are out there. You just got to be willing to, like, you know, get right into that and make it work. So I just want to go over a couple more things in these slides. Is the glycemic index foods. You know, they're not talking about high glycemic as much. I mean, look at this. Watermelon is really high in sugar. It's way up on the top, yet it's up there with bread and donuts and pastries and fries. So, you know, there's a lot of sugar in some foods that we think is okay to eat. You know, grapes, more than 6 grapes at one time are high in sugar. They're not considered a food that necessarily will help you. It's something to think about. You know, more vegetables, as you can see, are better in low glycemic foods. You can see the grains, the grapefruit, the apples. What we're moving more into is what we talked about before, is reading our labels is especially important. And I can also put this on my screen for you on my Caregiver Success page about one carbohydrate choice. I mean, you can look this up at any given time to how to read labels. Look at it this way. If you look at the back of a box or a can or jar, and it has more than 5 ingredients or so, and a lot of them you can't read, see if you could put it back and make it yourself. I mean, I'm making my own pesto sauces. I'm making my own homemade tomato sauces. I make my own salads. I buy everything at the food markets instead of, so I know that they're organically grown in my neighborhood. So it's really important to look around you and see what's better foods for you to pick from. Another really good slide. This is, again, my diabetes, MyPlate. This is really cool, you guys. Maybe what we could do is you could print it and put it in your purse or your wallet. And when you go to the grocery store, or when you go out to eat, how to make better choices. And as you can see, dairy is low on the list. Okay. Very, very important. It's really good. It's called Diabetes MyPlate, and you can look at it online. And that's where I made the little plate for you. And like I mentioned, this is the form that I'm going to put online for you to have and print off. So I know we talked about a lot of stuff. I will leave these tools for you. As you know, I'm Nancy the NP. I like to share tools with you as well, because all part of this is learning, is being able to walk away with something in your hands that you can use to be successful as you get older with me, and we all reduce our metabolic syndrome, which is just way higher than it should be in this country and all over the world. So from Nancy the NP at Caregiver Success, thanks for hanging out with me. Come see my other videos. Check out my book on caregiversuccess.com for you as you age and for those of you you're taking care of. Till the next video, take care and see ya.